Welcome to the deep dive. There are these figures in certain industries, right? Their names just become totally intertwined with their field. They almost have this like monarchical power.
Absolutely. But what happens when the ground beneath that kingdom starts to, well, shift, especially in a world like high fashion, so exclusive, so fast-paced?
Yeah, it's a really fascinating scenario, and that's exactly what we're getting into today.
hmm This deep dive is all about the recent news around Anna Wintour, nuclear Wintour, her supposed departure from American Vogue.
Right. So is an era truly over, or did it just sort of transform into something else, something maybe a bit more complex than the headline suggested?
That's the core question. And our guide for this is a really, really insightful article from Forbes. It's titled, Nuclear Wintour Ends at Vogue. Sort of. Anna Wintour reigns supreme.
And the author, Lillian Raji, she brings some serious depth to this. Her background is pretty impressive.
Oh, definitely. Lillian's a global luxury communications advisor, a fractional CMO, which means she brings that top-level marketing strategy to different companies. And she's a columnist, too.
Plus, president of the Lillian Raji Agency for, what, over 2 decades, advising major luxury brands?
Exactly. And she founded the PR Advisor, guiding smaller brands. Her Forbes column, The Pursuit of Luxury, it really digs into how these brands use emotional marketing to connect. She knows this world inside out.
So our mission here, for you listening, is to pull out the key insights from Lillian's analysis. We want to understand Wintour's legacy, the good, the bad, the complicated.
And what it all means, for leadership, for power, and just where the fashion industry is heading.
Okay, let's unpack this departure. The headlines made it sound huge, didn't they? Like, Wintour steps down.
They really did. Big splash.
But Lillian's analysis, it cuts right through that, suggests it wasn't quite a full abdication. What were the actual details there?
Right. So the reality, as Lillian lays it out, is a bit more nuanced. Yes, Anna Wintour did give up the editor-in-chief title at American Vogue. After 37 years, which is incredible.
37 years. Wow.
But, and this is the really crucial part, she kept her other major roles. Global editorial director of Vogue, chief content officer of Condé Nast. Those are huge positions.
Okay, so hang on. She sheds one title, but stays in charge of Vogue globally and Condé Nast's content strategy. That doesn't sound much like stepping back.
Not really, no. It looks more like a consolidation of power, actually.
And how does Lillian describe the way this played out, especially with the editor-in-chief title itself?
Well, Lillian points out that the American Vogue editor-in-chief role is just vanishing. It's being replaced by a head of editorial content.
Who reports directly to?
Anna Wintour.
Ah, right.
Yeah. Lillian calls it performance art, a move basically designed to maintain maximum control while feigning a changing of the guard.
Performance art. That's quite a phrase.
It captures the industry sentiment Lillian found, which was pretty much like any dictator who's ruled far too long, she's unwilling to fully abdicate.
Unwilling to fully abdicate. That really sets a tone, doesn't it? And it leads us straight into the other side of the coin. Because Lillian's article definitely doesn't shy away from the criticisms of Wintour's reign.
No, it absolutely doesn't. It gives voice to the less polished side of nuclear Wintour that people in the industry experienced.
Like what specifically?
Well, there's a direct quote from a publicist Lillian spoke to. I've worked with nuclear Wintour many times, each time more frigid than the next.
Oh,
pretty blunt.
frigid. Ouch.
And this publicist continued saying, demeaning demands and toxicity were her weapons of choice, often hurting the work of junior staff or publicists.
That paints a picture of a really difficult workplace culture. Was that just one person's view, or did Lillian find it was more widespread?
Lillian's reporting suggests it was more of a pattern. She quotes Darren Griffin, a writer and creative director, who felt Wintour's long tenure became a moving goalpost for new voices and emerging storytellers. It just got harder for new people to break in.
A moving goalpost. That sounds frustrating.
The overall impression from Lillian's piece is one of a toxic empire built on fear and favoritism.
And the Andre Leon Talley situation really stands out there, doesn't it? He was such a huge figure at Vogue.
A massive figure, groundbreaking. And Talley himself wrote about feeling totally discarded by Wintour after years of loyalty. It was very public and very damaging.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Lillian includes insights from Charmin Levy, founder of Blessed Designs Consulting. Levy argued that Vogue's DEI efforts, diversity, equity, inclusion, felt performative under Wintour.
Performative how?
Well, Levy's point was that Talley basically had to bulldoze his way into fashion on his own terms, suggesting it wasn't like Vogue or Wintour genuinely opened the door wide for him because of a commitment to diversity.
Right. And Lillian found other stories reinforcing this culture.
Yeah, stories where terror trumped creativity,
Right.
like personal whims just overriding professional work. Lillian mentions one anecdote. A client spent 3 whole months on a pitch.
3 months.
3 months, only to be told Anna had moved on. Just like that, imagine the wasted effort.
That's demoralizing. And then there was that really controversial Vogue profile in 2011, Asma al-Assad.
Ah, yes, a rose in the desert, Syria's first lady.
Mhm.
Lillian notes one publicist felt Wintour should have been fired for that piece.
It was incredibly poorly timed just before the Civil War erupted. Terrible judgment.
Widely seen as a huge editorial blunder praising a dictator's wife.
Yeah. So it's this real paradox, isn't it? You have these serious criticisms, this image of an autocratic style,
Hmm.
but then you have these undeniable, monumental achievements. How did those two things coexist for so long? How does she maintain such influence despite the negativity?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's what Lillian's article really digs into. Because, yeah, despite all the criticism, her impact on the fashion industry, which is worth, what, $2.3 trillion globally, it's just immense. She didn't just follow trends. She fundamentally shaped the industry.
Lillian quotes Trevor Perkins calling her the algorithm before algorithms. I love that description.
It's perfect, isn't it? It captures how she set the pulse, deciding styles, elevating designers, choosing who went on the cover. Like you said, we struggle now to keep up with trends, let alone be the trendsetter.
Vanessa Friedman at the New York Times had that great line, too.
Oh yeah, she does not put a finger in the wind to judge trends.
Yeah.
She is the wind, just captures her influence perfectly.
And the Met Gala, she turned that into something completely different.
Totally. Lillian's article calls it an ATM for the Met, which is spot on,
Yeah.
raising $31 million in 1 year alone. Just staggering.
Plus, the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund she co-founded, that launched a lot of careers.
It really did. Disbursed over $8 million to emerging designers since 2003. It was like the ultimate industry incubator backed by her power.
And she did other philanthropy too, right? Beyond just fashion.
Yeah, the CFDA Vogue initiatives raised over $20 million for AIDS research. She championed causes like Born Free Africa too, fighting HIV transmission.
Lillian also includes a point from Sally Ann Stevens about the celebrity covers.
Right. Stevens highlighted Wintour's foresight there. She was the first to consistently put celebrities on the cover of Vogue.
Which seems so normal now, but wasn't back then.
Exactly. Stevens said that move shifted fashion into the mainstream and brought music, film, and fashion into the same cultural space. Wintour saw the power of celebrity culture way early on.
And her eye for actual design talent was legendary. Marc Jacobs, McQueen.
Galliano, too. She backed them early. And with Galliano, Lillian notes, she even orchestrated his comeback after his fall from grace. That showed incredible clout, not just spotting talent, but reviving careers.
Lillian includes quotes about what being in Vogue meant, too.
Yeah, former model Shannon Russ Baltimore said being featured meant clients took you more seriously, led to bigger and better jobs. And publicist Jane Owen put it simply, to be featured in Vogue meant you were part of the story of fashion itself. High praise.
So when you put it all together, the harsh criticisms and the immense achievements, what does that tell us? About leadership, maybe.
It forces us to look at power in creative fields.
Yeah.
It's complex. And Lillian's article makes a crucial point. Beyond Wintour herself, the industry has changed dramatically. Her old imperial editor model just doesn't fit anymore.
So it's not just her, it's the context. The world Vogue operates in is different now. Maybe it moved faster than even she could adapt.
I think that's exactly Lillian's point. She includes a great perspective from Quinn May of Culture Agency. May says Wintour's vision, that dream world, still exists, but it doesn't quite align with today's fashion focus. May says fashion now is about self-expression, loving yourself, and being yourself. That's pretty different from Wintour's traditional focus on aspiration, inspiration, and admiration.
And the hard numbers, the business side, reflect that shift too.
Massively. Lillian points out fashion ad spend dropped 50% during the pandemic and hasn't fully recovered for many. Meanwhile, you've got TikTok creators moving trends incredibly fast.
Much faster than a monthly magazine's editorial cycle.
Way faster. So Wintour's traditional gatekeeping, which used to be Vogue's strength, its exclusivity, Lillian argues it's become a liability now. Audiences prefer democratized influence over dictated taste.
That's a huge shift. Power moving from the few to the many. Lillian quotes Monia Benchoufi Moulin with a really sharp take on this.
Yeah, Moulin argues Wintour's autocratic reign forced designers to bow, making fashion shows darker, colder, and joyless. A pretty harsh assessment.
And she said Vogue stopped being a discovery platform.
Right. Moulin's view, as presented by Lillian, is that it became an echo chamber for advertiser dollars and editorial nepotism, lost its core role of showing what's next. She felt Wintour's obsession with self-relevance drowned Vogue in noise.
Lillian also included that practical example from Jasmine Charbonnier, navigating 15 channels for just a maybe.
Yeah, Charbonnier's experience really illustrates the unwieldy nature of that centralized power. Her conclusion, highlighted by Lillian, is pretty clear. The era of the all-powerful fashion editor is ending. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's probably about time.
Coming from someone inside the industry, that's telling. And Professor Jenny Davis at SMU noted Vogue felt overdue for a refresh, saying Wintour hadn't been plugged into the generational zeitgeist.
It seems like a growing consensus that the publication felt out of sync. And it's not just Vogue. Lillian notes the wider trend of magazines ditching the editor-in-chief title for head of editorial content, moving towards more collaborative leadership.
It's just fascinating how Wintour's move to keep influence, as Lillian analyzes it, also kind of signals Vogue's own hesitation to truly change, like that quote Lillian included. It signals that Vogue isn't truly ready to evolve, holding on tight while the ground shifts.
Exactly. And that reluctance brings us to some really valuable C-suite lessons that Lillian pulls from this whole situation. Richard Dukas is quoted saying, "Few people have a name so iconic as Anna Wintour."
True.
But Lillian counters, iconic sans evolution becomes irrelevance, which is a stark warning.
Definitely. So what are those key takeaways Lillian identifies for executives looking at Wintour's story?
Lillian distills it into four main points. First, succession planning requires power sharing. Her argument is that Wintour's strategy of holding on to influence, even while technically retiring, is actually bad for Vogue long term. It blocks a real transition.
Right. If the power doesn't actually shift, the succession isn't real, it's just stagnation.
Exactly. Second insight, authenticity defeats authority. Yep. Younger generations especially, they reject that top-down imperial style. They value authenticity. So brands built around one all-powerful figure risk becoming obsolete if that figure seems out of touch.
That's a big one for any legacy brand tied to a founder or single leader.
Huge. Third lesson from Lillian. Toxicity is no longer in fashion. Fear-based cultures might have been tolerated once, but now they're major liabilities. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they'll just go elsewhere, start their own thing, rather than work for a well-heeled boss from hell, as Lillian puts it.
So that kind of culture directly hits your talent pool and your future competitiveness.
Absolutely. And finally, the fourth point. Relevance requires evolution and an open mind. Lillian points to Wintour's perceived disconnect from digital natives. Legacy isn't enough, especially if dissent is crushed, if challenging the leader is seen as career suicide. Lillian says C-suites need to constantly, ruthlessly ask, do our strategies actually reflect today's world?
Ruthlessly evaluate. Strong advice. Now, Lillian shared this amazing little story about gathering sources for the article, the AI response.
Oh, that was brilliant. Yeah, she put out a call for sources, got over 100 emails back, and 80%. Clearly AI generated.
80% saying what?
All hitting the same notes. End of an era. Decentralizing fashion. Gatekeeping. The standard tropes about Wintour. And Lillian quotes a former People magazine editor who said, "The fact that your call for sources on a piece about Anna Wintour ended in a slew of AI responses says a lot about how people think and feel about her."
It's like her narrative, the whole debate around her, is so well-worn that even AI gets it.
Exactly. It's kind of a meta-commentary on her pervasive impact, right? These themes, concentrated power, gatekeeping, the shift to authenticity, they're so much a part of the conversation that AI can just replicate them. It underscores her massive influence, even now.
So there we have it, a deep dive into Anna Wintour's reign. Complex, contradictory, an undisputed icon, no doubt about it, huge influence. But also a leadership style and a level of control that seem increasingly at odds with where the industry and maybe the world is going.
Which leaves us with a big question, really, for you to think about. In this world where influence is spreading out, where authenticity is key, can even the most powerful, iconic dictators hold on to their reign? Or is genuine evolution the only way to stay relevant?
It's a fantastic question, and we really urge you to read Lillian Raji's full analysis on Forbes. Again, the title is Nuclear Wintour Ends at Vogue, Sort of, Anna Wintour Reigns Supreme. It's a great read.
And definitely check out more of Lillian's work on the luxury industry on her website. That's www.lillianraji.com. You can also find her on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.